Hello, everybody. Alumni, members of the campus community and friends, welcome to this masterclass on the topic of leveraging technology to advance teaching and learning, presented to you by the Faculty of Education during At Home Homecoming 2020. My name is Dilson Rassier. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Education and your host. As you may know, the Faculty of Education is broad, housing the Department of Integrated Studies in Education, the Department of Education and Counselling Psychology, and the Department of Kinesiology and Physical Education, preparing teachers, counselors, physiologists, among others. We have many research and community-led initiatives that have been established over many years, including teacher preparation programs developed in partnership with Indigenous communities across Quebec, programs dedicated to mental health and education, international partnerships, and currently the development of unique Sports Science Institute, a diverse faculty with a diverse population of students. Last year, McGill launched Made by McGill, the campaign of our third century. And this campaign is aimed at tackling some of the key social, economic, and technological changes that we face today. Today, in this meeting, we will be talking about an issue that we in the Faculty of Education believe is very important, and that is how to leverage technology to advance education. From the faculty perspective, this topic is incredibly relevant and urgent in the reality we live today. Education is still the better tool to change the world into a better place for all, and linking education with technology is obviously one of the largest challenges that we face now. To discuss this important topic, we have two panelists who work at the forefront of technology, teaching, learning, working in very distinct environments. The first speaker will be Professor Alain Breuleux from the Faculty of Education. Alain's research is in the area of technology and pedagogies, and he's also the Associate Dean for Academic Programs in the faculty. Our second guest is Peter Balyta. Peter is Vice President, Academic Engagement Corporate Citizenship, and also the President for the Education Technology section at Texas Instruments. Peter is also the Chair of our faculty's advisory board. Alain will make a brief presentation for us, which will be followed by a dialogue between him and Peter, exposing different views and facets on how to leverage technology to advance education on all levels. So with that, welcome again, and I'll turn now to the presentation with Alain Breuleux.
Hello, everybody. When thinking about leveraging technology to advance teaching and learning, many initiatives and experiences come to mind. And the area that we will talk about more specifically today is STEM education. What is STEM education? It refers to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics as important fields of human activity. And STEM education focuses on the interdisciplinary connections between these fields of practice. From an educational perspective, it focuses on ambitious, high-leverage instructional practices that include design thinking, and it focuses also on engaging students in connected real-world problem solving. Now, why does STEM education matter? It relates to our ambitions and aspiration for lifelong learning, critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration as key competencies in the 21st century. Now, I want to say a few words about how we approach STEM education in the Faculty of Education at McGill. The first and foremost feature of our initiatives is a network of partner schools and organizations. Secondly, we're promoting design thinking in project-based activities within collaborative teams targeting cross-disciplinary work. And very importantly, we provide real-world experiences, visiting schools and other sites where STEM is taught or where the disciplines are practiced. For example, engineering firms, science centers, game developers, artificial intelligence institutes, etc. Another feature of our approach is internships for connected learning that allow student teachers, graduate students, cooperating teachers to engage in real science, authentic science practices in industry, and real-world experiences in science centers, botanical garden, museums. We're also taking an engineering design approach into our curriculum. And these design processes include understanding, observing, defining, and developing ideas, prototyping them, testing them. It's the scientific method, if you will. Another feature of the contents of our initiatives in STEM education is computational thinking, maker-oriented programs such as robotics, coding, digital arts, and very importantly, professional development that helps teachers develop their practices along with disciplinary content knowledge. I want to mention a few specific initiatives. Some of our faculty members are exploring how tablets can be useful educational tools for elementary mathematics. They're also looking at the interesting aspects of 3D digital fabrication. Other faculty members are exploring pedagogical strategies to encourage meaningful science talk among students. And importantly, we also have ongoing teacher professional learning in technology, but also with technology, where collaborative design by teachers and faculty members and researchers is a very powerful form of professional development. Now, given this broad overview of STEM education in the faculty, I'm turning to Peter, and I want to ask Peter, what do you think is needed nowadays to get more students interested in STEM fields?
Well, thank you, Alain. As you know, I'm a strong believer in STEM. In fact, I believe STEM skills are survival skills for kids today. And really, an incomplete understanding of STEM equates to an incomplete understanding of the world around them. We can't have kids backing away from math and science. We need to help them bring these subjects to life and really open their eyes to the potential of exciting future STEM careers. We all know that kids naturally love STEM. We know that STEM becomes fun when it becomes relevant. And we have to face it, the days of fabricated word problems, canned data from textbooks, those days are long over. And in fact, those techniques are perhaps the fastest way to turn a child who's a math or STEM lover into a math hater. And so we have to give students the tools and opportunities to collect and analyze real data to solve real problems that matter to them. And so let's be clear, real world has to mean real world for the students. And getting students to understand how STEM helps them understand the entire world around them, that's when we have to really think about their world, what matters to them. That's when STEM will come to life. And really, that's the spark that we need to light in the students, or the fuel that we need to fire. So if we can help students develop a true passion for STEM, it becomes that much easier for them to come up with ways that technology can balance and improve how the world consumes energy, how to improve access to clean water and better sanitation for those in need, and how to bring healthcare to even the most remote areas on our planet. And so STEM education, I think, is a heroic endeavor. It requires a lot of effort across many people. And it's just incredibly important that we keep growing as educators, as industry, as parents, and as communities to give students positive experiences with STEM so that they have the confidence and aptitude to discover solutions to any problems they face in school and in life, let alone in their career choices. So we definitely share STEM as a common passion. And I wanted to, talk a little bit more about STEM and pick up on something you said in your opening talk. How do you think community-based partnerships really enrich the Faculty of Education's research and knowledge hubs?
Yeah, good question. Thank you, Peter. I want to focus on partnerships with sites of practice, places like Texas Instrument or science labs and engineering firms. The partnerships between the faculty researchers and these sites are probably the best way to ensure that educational research is relevant and that the results are used to advance practice. When researchers, teachers, and other education stakeholders work together, they're better at identifying relevant challenges, pooling different expertise, and creating workable solutions at the same time as they advance knowledge in both the practical and the theoretical fields. And that, in a very important way, is reducing the burden of what we call knowledge transfer. In the classic method of doing research, it takes place outside of a field of practice. It takes place in a university lab, and it is driven by the curiosity of scientists. There's nothing wrong with that, but we need other, more varied forms of conducting research. And the community-based partnerships are providing us with ways that make it possible for the knowledge created during research to be directly connected with the challenges and the preoccupations of the practitioners. And those partnerships are also making it possible for everybody, the teachers, researchers, to create motivating experiences. Just to go back to your perspective, Peter, motivating experiences for the learners to help them see the relevance of learning STEM disciplines. So the partnerships are creating these opportunities for everybody to connect their understandings of education, STEM fields, and the motivation for kids. Now, I'm curious to know, Peter, what are the hot STEM-related business opportunities right now, and how can we learn more from them as a faculty of education?
Well, I think I'd be happy to jump in on that. But first, I want to comment on what you just said about community-based partnerships and how they're essential for validating research in the real world. I have to share, when I was preparing to be a teacher at McGill, our work with students in classrooms in real schools was more impactful than anything I read in a textbook, to be honest.
Absolutely.
But I also think having access to schools, teachers, and students in their natural environments give researchers window into the real challenges in our system. So in industry, we call that, customer focused. Don't ask people what their biggest challenges are, or don't tell them about solutions to problems that you think they have, but instead, we observe them, ask them questions, work with them on solutions, and then iterate until you get it right. And you could only do that with the type of community partnerships that you just described. So just love what McGill is doing in this area. Now, you asked me about, kind of what are hot STEM topics and business opportunities right now? Well, there are a lot. And so engineering, obviously, given, I'm representing Texas Instruments here, I have to talk about engineering and innovation. Really continues to be key. And the world is watching what companies around the world are doing to try and solve some of the biggest problems to make our world safer, smarter, and of particular importance right now, healthier, right? And so if you look just over the last 200 years, there were less than 1 billion people living on our planet. And today, there are more than 7 billion of us. And so that really puts the enormity of today's public health crisis into perspective, for example. And so while healthcare is an essentially hot topic right now, hot opportunity, so too is technology and engineering. And the technology sector has grown rapidly in the past few decades, and so have the demands on those who create, understand, and develop electronic control systems, which translates into good, high-paying job opportunities. And I would also say that there's a welcome and renewed focus on diversity in engineering, both in terms of employing more women and people of color in a profession that has been historically white and male. But really, the bottom line, Alain, is that we can and we must do better at making STEM fields more diverse by developing a culture in which everyone feels valued, included, and really accepted. Alain, I could go on and talk about other hot topics. You mentioned robotics in your opening. For me, robotics has grown beyond being a trend, right? It's here and now, it's everywhere. So at TI, we have two big markets that we focus in on. One is the industrial market and the automotive market. So just to give examples on the industrial side, if you go into factories right now, you will see industrial robots doing a lot more than just moving around and grabbing boxes. These service robots, lawnmowers, humanoids are becoming more common as robots are managing beyond logistic tasks in warehouses. But if we think about cars, and this gets back to what's hot today, and then also I think what industry needs from students, and therefore from world-class academic institutions like McGill. But if you remember the old days of automotive design, the next generation of car was defined by more horsepower, or maybe the newest shade of red. And so those days are long gone, right? Cars today are complex systems of entertainment, security, communications, driver assist. So that means that the pace of innovation in the automotive industry is nearing that of consumer electronics. And in fact, if you think of all the consumer electronics now integrated into the car, they're just complex systems. And so it wasn't that long ago when these industries had a slow time to market, design, and everyone worked separately on projects. And today we know that both the industrial and the robotics markets really require interdisciplinary teams to work together on these complex problems. And so a car no longer goes from point A to point B. A car has become a mobile command center on wheels, right? And a factory floor is now a maze of automation where factory tasks performed efficiently and safely can be done by robots. But what these complex systems means to engineer and the engineering process is that what were once standalone elements of a design cycle, technologies, functions, and designers, they're now interdisciplinary, involving development teams who are expected to deliver a product with, only possible by working together. And the number one skill, when we talk about STEM, I agree with you. You heard me say that there are survival skills, teamwork, collaboration, communication, computational thinking, all those things. But another really important piece that's becoming increasingly important is systems thinking. And I think that's going to become even more important in the future. The way of achieving systems for me is really through that interdisciplinary teaching and learning environments that encourage diverse ideas to solve real problems. And increasingly, I believe that we will see curriculum and teaching methodologies reflecting this new engineering reality.
Absolutely.
So, I wanted to ask you a little bit about something which I hope we won't be talking about for too much longer, but COVID-19. How do you feel or see the global pandemic, how it's changed the education sector? Can you talk a little bit about that, Alain?
Great question. I would say first and foremost, I think it has pushed us, and it is pushing us into what I would call a massive global social experiment, okay? And a social experiment that requires us to stretch our imagination and to think a bit differently about a number of things. And of course, technology has taken an important role in our response to that pandemic in education and other sectors, information technology, like web-based collaboration tools like what we're using now, etc. But also it pushed us into responding to a pandemic with scientific data, and the STEM fields are important, responding to a pandemic with scientific data, and also a corresponding capacity to develop medical and public health solutions based on science. Peter, I've never heard as often in the media the words evidence, the words what science knows about the pandemic and the health response to that. So in a sense, the pandemic has changed the education sector in a number of ways, revealing our need to do more in fields like science, health science, computational science, etc. For us, more particularly in education, I think we're going to see a clarification of the roles and advantages of in-person teaching and online remote teaching. We're developing, because of necessity, better tools and more regular opportunities to teach remotely. But we will eventually go back to the possibility of being in presence. And I'm pretty sure that we will have learned better ways to do in-person teaching. In other words, we might change the way that we group students together. We might be forced or be interested in reducing the number of very large classes on campus, like at McGill. and to do things differently with a mix of smaller groups and technology-based interactions. We will have the opportunity to learn how to do each better and with greater relevance. And I would say, finally, it also revealed the importance of human and social capital. The equity and democracy as vital educational goals. You look at what's going on in the world today, and we all hope that the capacity of human beings to work together and to be caring for each other will overcome other more negative, possible negative outcomes of a pandemic. And so we're talking about the future and how we can get future ready. So the question that I want to ask you, Peter, is what do future-ready students need from industry in helping them in their trajectory or guiding them? What do you think about that?
One, I just, the way you describe the effect of the pandemic on the whole education system, I thought was powerful. The biggest e-learning experiment in history. And so when I think about what future-ready students will need in industry, I got to go back to part of your answer around this issue is while it may feel like everything around us is in a constant state of change right now, what hasn't changed is the commitment of educators to develop those future-ready students, right? Yeah. What's being asked of educators in this time of uncertainty has heightened anxiety and is really nothing short of heroic. And so if we've learned anything from this pandemic, I hope it's that the teaching profession, which has been, minimized, overlooked, and despite its critical role in shaping young minds, deserves our huge respect, admiration, and really, despite many challenges and risks that teachers face, they continue to just show up, provide comfort and consistency amid the chaos. And as a parent and a lifelong educator made by McGill, I have to say that I'm overwhelmed with gratitude for the gift of learning teachers are sharing with our students during this pandemic each and every day. So a huge thank you to you and the faculty for everything you're doing in this area. When I think about STEM jobs, and what future-ready students need from industry, earlier you heard me talk about some things that industry needs from students, right? Those survival skills, STEM skills, systems thinking. But clearly, future-ready students, what they'll need from the industry are opportunities to keep learning and growing, authentic problems to solve. And the good news is we have a lot of those. And so, if you think about STEM jobs, well, they're growing, they continue to grow fast. And workers in STEM fields are in huge demand. Now, I'm a math guy. I love data. So, I'll share data around this opportunity to grow STEM talent. STEM occupations, they're projected to grow 9% by 2024, compared to 6% for non-STEM occupations. And another, fact that students need to know is that STEM workers command higher wages, earning up to 29% more than their non-STEM counterparts. But the reality is there will be thousands of STEM jobs at TI, in technology and other STEM industries in need for qualified candidates for the years to come. And the same story will be repeated across the country and many countries. So we have to ensure that the students, that they're prepared and really capable to meet this growing demand. And so I do think, something that's important for students is really to be getting those experiences. And so it goes back to community partnerships. I think definitely relationships with local schools, school districts are very important, but as are relationships with industry locally. And so that's important because those are all types of experiences we can give students. And, just to give you a glimpse, every year at TI, we hire, hundreds of college students at our sites around the world as part of our recruiting and talent pipeline development strategy. Other companies are doing the same thing. We recruit from universities with, top departments in our hiring areas. So for us, that's engineering, finance, marketing. I came from education. And while TI doesn't have major operations in Montreal, many other companies and industries do. And we need to continue to strengthen those connections between companies and the very talented McGill students. There's just so many opportunity around us. We need to capitalize on them in as many ways as we can. So, why don't we transition now to a broad brush question. So I hope you're ready for this one. But just in a nutshell, what does the future of education look like, Alain? Small question.
A small question, yeah, that'd be short. Well, you mentioned a couple of key points that I think are resonating with me in responding to that question. I'm thinking of the global situation. One of the things that education is increasingly looking like is it's a global enterprise, so to speak, and so we need to be able to manage the relationship between the global and the local. You also mentioned, the local is important. It's equally important as the global to some extent, because you have to have this science center in the neighborhood that you can connect with. But the science center is connected to other science centers around the world. And so I think the future of education will have to manage this going back and forth between the global and the local. Another thing that is increasingly evident to me is that we will have and continue to have more diverse learners. You also mentioned something like that. We're no longer in a world that has the same kind of kids, the same curriculum for everybody, and you go from point A to point B in your life and just in your trajectory as a learner. We will have diversity in parallel in different classrooms, in different schools. We will also have diversity of trajectories and different challenges to making more students succeed. And I think another key point of the future of education will be a lot more alternating between learning, working. That this idea that you go through a program of study, you get a diploma or a degree, and then learning is done. We know that that's no longer the case, but I think we will face that reality increasingly in the near future, that we will have to have people come back to universities. Universities will be transformed by the fact that the learners are diverse. And the same with high schools. We can think of the difficulties with school dropouts, educational success, to be a problem that has to do with the school environment is not sufficient to capture the attention and the engagement of young people now. So we need to vary the experience. And I think there's nothing wrong with this notion of going to school and going out to work or engage in any kind of social activities within organizations. And that's why, going back to the partnership idea, it is crucial for us to have these connections between schools, the faculty, other faculties at McGill, and a variety of organizations, both local and global. But I'm also curious to know what you think about the future of education, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big topic, but you said something that just triggered something in my mind. I was talking with, like you, I go around to many schools and do STEM outreach, have conversations with students of all ages, elementary students all the way to university students. And there was a 16-year-old that spoke with me. This was in January, one of my last visits to schools, actually. And she was telling me she heard my presentation about engineering, and she's like, I love this stuff. But, Mr. Balyta, it's too late for me. I didn't take the advanced math class to get into that physics. And I'm like, You're 16 years old. How can it be too late for you? And so, that speaks to a little bit of the system. But then, to your point, it's never too late. And, I shared something with those kids in confidence that I'll share with you all here. I'm almost 50 years old. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I mean, how many times, are things going to change? And so to your point, you could be learning one thing, learning something else. Keep building those partnerships. Needs will arise. We have problems today, but there are problems coming that we don't know we have yet. Yeah. We need kids in schools today to be ready to handle those questions. And so, when I think about, what the future looks like, yeah, there'll be more Zooms. I agree with you. There'll be next generation Zooms. There'll be hybrid learning, distance learning. But where the digital programs and resources, they can be powerful tools in the classrooms. But we need to remember that's all they will ever be, tools. And so I like Star Trek, and there's a quote that comes to mind. Computers make excellent and efficient servants, but I have no wish to serve under them. So the truth is, I think computer programs, intelligent tutoring systems, artificial intelligence, all of that can't replace teachers. And so great teachers will never become obsolete. No amount of technology will replace good teaching. And so I for me, when you ask about the future, I think great teachers, those that continue to grow, continue to push themselves, they're the single most important piece of the education puzzle. And really the key to unlocking student potential in the classroom and beyond. So I think we need great teachers now more than ever.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's probably a good concluding remark for this dialogue. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Alain. This is fun.
Thank you, Alain. Thank you, Peter. This was really, really a great discussion. Your passion for education, STEM, technology, society, really, the future of human beings is amazing. I'm sure those following us now are fascinated by this exchange. Watching someone from academia and someone from the business sector sharing very similar ideas on education is revigorating. And it does serve as an example of the importance of breaking silos in search of a better education, of a better world for all, really. Thank you very much again. This was very, very nice to hear your views on this. And I also want to thank especially all of those joining us right now for this session. I think that you will agree with me that this was a very interesting discussion that we just had. So I hope to see you all again in the near future, and stay safe, stay well, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.